witches, warlocks, sorcerers, adepts, friends, fans, family, and followers to Season 5, Episode 2 of the hit underground occult radio show known as Knights of the Nephilim, brought to you by Celestial Oddities Radio and the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order. As always, I will be your host and guide on this journey into magic and mysticism, darkness, and divination. I am Frater Crow, and it's a pleasure to have you listening in this evening. Whether you're listening live, streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded us to your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Make sure you click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons on whatever platforms you're tuning in from. If you're more of a visual or live person, we do air live each week from 9 to 10:30, and that episode is going to be housed on 4 different Facebook pages: Frater Crow, Knights of the Nephilim, Celestial Oddities Radio, and the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order. 4 different pages, excuse me. And then the 5th page that it'll go on to live will be on YouTube on the Knights of the Nephilim page. Facebook only allows live videos to stay up for 30 days, so feel free to check it out, leave comments, and engage with it on Facebook, but it'll permanently be on the YouTube channel. And for those out there that like more of a audio experience, don't need visual, don't need live, as soon as these episodes air, I upload it to Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, CastBox, you name it, we're on it for the audio experience, and you can stream that after the fact. But if you are listening out there live, feel free to leave comments, engage with the show, ask our guest questions, leave us your thoughts on things. We will throw it up on the screen. We will engage with you. This is as much your show as it is ours, so please feel free to be a part of that. If you missed our last episode with John Vermillion and Orly Stewart, I ask that you go back and check it out. It's great to be back with a brand new season, Season 5. We've been doing this for quite some years at this point, and it has been a pleasure each and every episode, each and every guest to get to sit down and talk to such amazing people. So we have a very special guest joining us this evening, and he is a teacher and practitioner whose life bridges ancient traditions with the modern world. Baba Yogi Kalinath Aghori is an initiate and guru in the Nath, Aghor, and Keola tantric lineages. He is a devotee of Kali Ma, whom he honors as the Divine Mother, the womb and primal mover of the universe. From his home in Australia, he guides students around the world, sharing a path that is at once fierce as it is compassionate and deeply transformative. Tonight, we're going to explore what it means to walk the Nath Aghor path, how Tantra can be lived authentically in today's world, and what Kali Ma has to teach us in these turbulent and chaotic times. We'll touch on the power of lineage, the guru-disciple relationship, the confrontation with death, and the mystery of transformation through transgression. This is a rare opportunity, guys, to hear directly from a living representative of one of the world's most misunderstood yet most ancient and profound traditions. So settle in, open your mind, and join us on this journey into the heart of Tantra, Aghor, and the embrace of the Dark Mother herself. As always, let's step into the circle as we call forth Baba Yogi Kalinath Aghori. Welcome, brother. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Greetings, Frater Crow. Greetings.
I'm really excited to be able to get you on the show to share your expertise and knowledge with the listeners out there, because as someone who's followed you for a few years now online, I've always loved your videos. I've always loved what you had to say and your path. So it's a beautiful moment to get you on and get you talking to everybody.
No, thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I want to jump right in this evening. I like to just get right to it. And there's a lot of things that we need to cover this evening. So real quick, I do see some comments coming in. We got Ja Kalima from Dr. Christy Smurl. Thank you. For the folks listening out there, Dr. Smurl will be on the show later in the season. So we got some more great conversations coming up, and I really look forward to that interview as well. I feel blessed always to get to talk to such amazing people. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up, and we're going to jump right into it here. Let me just get myself calibrated. So, starting off in the Nath, Aghor, and Keola tantric lineages, much is passed through direct transmission rather than books. How do you balance preserving secrecy with also sharing teachings for a modern and global audience?
And that's a very good question. And it is about becoming intimate with one's audience, with one's students. So in Tantra, we actually interact on a very personal level. We get to know people. So because in Tantra, people can only grow from where they're at, not from an imagined perspective, but when how they're expressing here and now, what their level of perceptions are about reality, both in regards to themselves and the world that we interact with. And from there, that's where we take it from. So when we give for example, a talk in public to a general audience, we basically convey general information about the path, right? And people will have basically things they can take away from them. But once the interaction becomes more personal, when there is a master disciple relationship, this is when we go on a journey together. So it's a dance. It's a dance that we have together. So it's not static, it's dynamic, and it is adjusted and adapted as per what the student is experiencing themselves and the perception of life or themselves. And this is how we operate. So even though we have a certain philosophy, a certain methodology, certain techniques and skills that can be developed, it will vary from student to student.
No, it's beautiful.
So
It's
every
customized per
personal
person.
approach is not one approach for everyone. Absolutely not, because we all come from different experience. We come from different perceptions, and therefore, the path to become relevant has to be made relevant to the individual student, and that's how people grow.
No, that's absolutely beautiful. It is tailored per person. What one size certainly does not fit all. So to be able to have that one-on-one contact, whether it be in person, whether it be from afar, you're able to tap into what the needs are of that individual and help them find that path within themselves.
Correct. And actually, the concept of guru is an external projection. So the guru points to the guru within the disciple, within the student. This is what you could term the intuition, meaning that the internal mentor, tuition to be taught, and in mean within. So until that internal voice of guidance is awakened, the external guru is absolutely essential. A living guru is absolutely essential to guide the disciple of the student until that internal voice of the eternal spirit within is awakened and guides the individual themselves.
That's
So this,
beautiful. It reminds me of an old saying, and it's not to be taken wrong, but I know there was an old saying that if you find a guru along the path, kill him. And it's really just saying that follow your teacher until you no longer need that teacher and you become the guru, as you just said. And that is a beautiful thing, that you need that teacher, that mentor, to help spark your light. And once it's burning bright enough, you never really need another light again, as long as you continue to maintain that fire, or else it will go back out. So folks out there, it's all about finding that inner light, that inner self, and being able to really stoke those flames.
correct, correct. So the guru serves for that to spark that inner light within oneself. And also, the word guru means heavy with knowledge, spiritual knowledge, because no one can teach you what they've not experienced themselves. And a true guru cannot will guide according to what they experience themselves. So that's a real guru. So you want your guru to be awakened, because how can you be awakened if a person has not walked the treacherous path of awakening themselves?
True. Yeah, I mean that's a big problem these days, that I think a lot of different paths have people that have the titles, or use the titles, but don't have the path that led to that title. There is it's fun, folks, I'm sure, to flash a lot of titles out there, but there is an earning that title, and there is the the cadence that's behind that title, the true energy of a true teacher. When you meet them and you know, okay, this person embodies They are the embodiment of their lineage and path, not just someone who uses a title. And usually it's pretty quick to figure out who actually has the knowledge, and that can be told just by the vibration given off from that person. If you're in tune with vibrations, you should feel that energy coming off of a true teacher.
Mm. So it teaches a removal of darkness, our inner darkness that hides our own inner light as such. So to remove this veil of darkness within us, to reveal the true spark of a divine self within.
Absolutely.
That's the ultimate role of a guide, of a spiritual mentor.
Well, it actually brings me to another question I had, because talking about, obviously you are a teacher and you have students from all over the world, and you are in Australia. So the question I guess I would want to ask is, in this current technological advanced digital age where you guide students worldwide, how has the tradition of guru and disciple relationship evolved, and what elements remain still unchanged despite the shift in this new medium?
Look, technology is a great thing. It makes the world smaller. However, there are some aspects that cannot be replaced, and that's a personal interaction. So we can have a personal interaction through technology, which is fine, but that can only be taken to a certain point. Some teachings, some initiations need to be done in person. And this is where the disciple must come to the guru to receive those initiations. So via technology, a great way to prepare the student and to test the student as well. So it's just not a matter of doing the work, and the guru will soon find out whether the work is being done or not. And so there's testing all along the way to see whether the actual student is actually doing the work, because in Tantra, it requires work. It means fashioning oneself into a diamond. So for that, there needs to be a lot of erosion, a lot of chipping away of one's limitations and one's lack of understanding, and to grow, to expand one's perception about oneself and about the world at large. So that takes time. That takes doing daily practice. There's no Tantra without sadhana or practice, and there's no practice in Tantra without mantra, without divine vibrations. Because you see, mantra is a tool for the mind. And the tool for the mind is to transform consciousness itself into a divine vehicle. So this is the methodology that is used in Tantra. So some of it can be communicated by distance, absolutely. And most of it is a preparation. Everything's a preparation for something else, right? It's again fashioning the multifaceted aspect of a diamond, of a self within. But some of the more advanced practices and more advanced initiation need to be done in person, and some aspect of it. To me, no one can call themselves Aghori at the end of it if they've not been initiated by a living master, and if they've not been initiated at the cremation ground, is particularly in India, because this is where the source of the lineage is from. It's from India. So for the Aghori tradition, how I received my name after many years of practice is in India, the burning ghats in Varanasi, where Lord Shiva resides. So there, the cremation ground, I was initiated into the Aghori lineage after many years of preparation.
That's beautiful, because one of the questions I was going to ask tonight, which falls into that really also reminds me. So I am a Kimbondero, initiated Kimbondero, and in Kimbanda, it's the same type of concept. Is you have to receive those energies in Brazil. There's reasons that you go to where it started. And obviously, as you said, Tantra is the same, because it started in the charnel grounds. It started in the cremation grounds. There's energy there. There is lineage. There's roots. And these lineages, though mostly secretive and though mostly passed down orally, it's still all about the root. You have to plant that root. So if you were from somewhere else, you need to go and get a piece of that root so it's planted inside you, but it is also planted in wherever you call home so that it can grow and flourish there. And without the root, you're an empty tree that's not going to withstand the storm.
That is well put.
And it brought me to one of my questions I was going to ask tonight. It was, with Tantra being commercialized these days and diluted in the West, how can a sincere seeker discern authentic Tantra from the superficial, especially seeking guidance outside of India? Now, obviously, we know that there's probably going to need to be a trip at some point, but someone, let's say in the West, looking right now, feeling a calling, feeling an energy and a pull to Tantra, but they're seeing all these modern day authors and modern day people just chipping out books, using AI, using whatever's happening these days just to throw theories and ideas into pages to sell books. How do you say someone is able, or what do you give as far as advice to be able to discern authentic Tantra when they are not under the tutelage of a guru or in India? What do you suggest?
Well, test the teacher. So if someone is presenting themselves as a teacher, test them. Meaning, ask first and foremost what their lineage are, and look from there. Look if it's a bona fide lineage. Look back who were their teacher and who were their teachers' teachers, and so forth. And normally you can go right back to the very founder of that particular lineage. Then you know you've got an authentic lineage. Also, I would say to people who are looking for a genuine lineage and who are interested in Tantra and so forth, take the romance out of it.
Yep, I think that's a big thing.
Romance out of it, yeah. Because like anything else worthwhile in life, whether it is a career, whether it is a profession, whether it is a skill, whether it is learning guitar, mastering guitar, it takes hours of practice. What you see people performing, which are masterful at their art, what we don't see is the hours of practice, the sacrifice that's been done over the years to reach that level. It's no different in Tantra. So if you, what is the essence of Tantra? Why Tantra? You know, the essence of Tantra, the aim game of Tantra is mukti and bhukti. Mukti is liberation. And liberation is not cheap.
Never.
And bhukti is divine enjoyment. And what people have done in the West in regards to Tantra and commercialized it, focus on the enjoyment aspect of it, but purely from a sensory sexual perspective, because sex sells. Full stop.
Yep.
And if you look at the left-hand path of Tantra, like Kala Tantra and so forth, the sexual element is actually for the advanced practitioner. When you have the sexual congress aspect, it's after many, again, years of practice and only for people of a certain predisposition.
And I think that's often misunderstood. I think that's very misunderstood by most, even in other practices. I think first and foremost, as you said, people come into it, they see, oh, there's the sexual rites and this sounds fun, or just in general, there's this darkness to Tantra and I want to get into it. It's very easy. You can separate the wheat from the chaff, because usually as soon as you start to put them to work and they realize it's not fun, within month one, they're like, well, this isn't fun anymore. It's never meant to be fun. And as you said, you're carving the body into a diamond, and that is not going to be done easily. And the second misconception, as you mentioned, is the sexual rites. In any practice, guys, any type of sexual magic needs to be handled by advanced practitioners, because it is not just the act of sex in ritual. It's the act of channeling energies through certain circuits within your body to raise certain vibrations, whether we want to call that the Kundalini, whether we want to look at it like other systems and they talk about the point chads or the Ojas energy. There's ways to do this and do it properly. And if done properly by advanced students, you can have profound life-changing experiences. If done improperly by people who don't know what they're doing, you can have dire experiences. It can flip backwards on you guys. So take the allure out of it, take the fun out of it. It can be fun. It is work. You are not reaching paradise without walking through hell.
Mm-hmm. Again, well put.
And I think, let me pull it up here real quick. I had a question here, and There it goes. I was going to say in Aghor and Kaola Tantra, the body is not seen as an obstacle, but as a temple of the divine. So, how do you guide your students to truly experience divinity through their body rather than trying to transcend it and look for it outwards?
Yes, and so as tantrics, we are spiritual scientists. So we use the body, the mind, the senses, and the world as our laboratory and not our laboratory. So this is a distinction, right? So we are
Yeah.
spiritual scientists. So this is our temple. The topmost temple is the human body, not fashioned by human hands. That is the topmost temple where the divine resides. So the sanctum sanctorum of divinity is within the human heart, and the body is the human temple. And so, therefore, our practices involve the body. And what's here, we say in touch, what's here is elsewhere. What's not here is nowhere else. Everything is a reflection of everything else. So that's how we gain mastery in Tantra, is by becoming spiritual scientists and developing awareness of the body, awareness of the mind, awareness of the emotions, and awareness of awareness itself, which we call samadhi. Okay, but first, before we start, we must have humility. And humility means to become aware of how unaware we are in the first place.
I love that.
Only then can we build a solid foundation. This is about building a solid foundation. And if you neglect the body, or if you despise the body, if you despise the body processes and so forth, which are alchemical processes at the physical level anyway. So unless you embrace all those things, you'll become a prisoner in your awareness and your emotion of those things. So it's about highlighting that everything is a play of Shiva, Shakti, of consciousness and power together, right? Otherwise, we would not express at any level. And basically, the topmost practice in Tantra is awakening of a divine mother within us known as Kundalini Shakti. In order for her to rise upon the planes of consciousness, which we call the chakras, to arrive at the abode of where her spouse resides, laying there dormant, and to be awakened in her embrace. This is when the Kundalini Shakti reaches the thousand pillar lotus here. And that union comes the awakening and the expansion of consciousness of awareness. So the body is essential for this to happen. It's a template for the subtle body, for us to focus our attention, to awaken the potential of the subtle body in order to transform it into that body of light. There's many words for it. The diamond body, what we call the Divya Deha, the body of divinity.
Okay.
So in order to know God or the goddess or divinity, become divinity. And this is the divinization of that subtle body into the deity itself. So ultimately, whether our deity is Kali, Shiva, Krishna, and so forth, the divinity, we come to the realization that we are the divinity.
And
Now,
I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful, and it's skipped by so many practices because I think that people focus on the outward prayers. They focus on meditation. They focus on ritual. They focus on all these other things that are needed. They are important. They have their purpose, but they ignore the one thing that's the most important, which is the temple of self. And if you are not, as you said, building yourself up, you're not able to even receive the higher energies. You can't raise the Kundalini Shakti energy. And as you said, open the thousand petal lotus to higher levels of consciousness because you don't have the right instruments to do so. And if for some reason, folks, you were able to open the pineal gland and you are able to open that without being prepared for it, it could be a nightmarish world for you. And you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are doing and raising the energy over a time period and your body's adapted to it. As Baba said, the diamond body, you have to treat your temple. That is dieting, that is sleeping right, that's breathing right, that's meditating right, that's living right. And let's face it, most people, especially in a Western world, do not live right. This country is overrun by people who are sickly, obese, and just ill in a lot of different ways. And they don't seem to have a problem with that. There needs to be firm discipline and dedication to a true path of enlightenment. You're not reaching enlightenment if you're hundreds of pounds overweight. You're not reaching enlightenment if you're eating anything and everything you want all day long. If you're sleeping only a couple hours a night, if you're not at least sleeping at the proper times, if you're not getting in touch with yourself through meditation in the deeper levels of self, you're never reaching it. You're really just LARPing. You are doing fanfare and telling people about paths that you've never actually tread. And that's a problem that I've very openly spoke about it. That there's so many people living a Comic-Con life. They're on here and they're talking about all these amazing things, and it's like, but you don't embody what it is you're speaking of, and that you are a vessel, and to be able to receive that liquid, that water, you better be the proper vessel to receive it. And if you're not receiving it. Now, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things here. So you describe Kali Ma as the womb and the prime mover of the universe. How does this cosmology, or how has this cosmology reshaped your understanding of creation, destruction, and rebirth compared to more dualistic traditions?
Excellent question. We in the East, we say that the first guru is mother, because obviously we come from her, whether we male, female, whether we are whatever color, whatever state we are in, from a level of the level of potential, we all come from a mother, right? We were born from her into the light of this world. So before we come into this world, we are inside her womb and we are nourished by her. When we come into this light of this world, we go straight to the breast to be fed from her. And so therefore she is the incubator of life. She's the incubator of consciousness. See, she is the nourisher of life. And when we look deeper actually into our genetics, we all start as XX. This is a matrix. We all start as XX, and we either stay XX or differentiate into XY. Yep. So that's very interesting. It shows the primacy of the Divine Mother principle. And when we look at us as human beings or sentient beings experiencing life on this planet, on planet Earth, whirling around the sun, it's all encapsulated in space. That is a womb of space, which allows everything to happen in divine order. So we have gravity on Earth for a certain reason, basically, so that we don't whirl off into space when we're traveling at such a speed around the sun. We are the exact distance that's required between the sun and the Earth for life to proliferate here through a process of photosynthesis and what we call the divine prana that comes from the sun, the life force. So everything is in divine order, and everything is within that womb of the universe. So what's here, we come from that womb, or we're nurtured, incubated in that womb that we call our biological mother, and we come into this world encapsulated in the womb that we call the universe. What's here is elsewhere. What's not here is nowhere else. Everything is a reflection of everything else. And so the divine mercy of that divine mother aspect, that nourisher, is the what sustains life also. So you see it, for example, life feeds on life. Okay, whether one is vegetarian or not, life feeds on life. Full stop. That's a given, right? If
Yep.
you want to
100%.
survive, you have to eat plant material or you eat something that has feasted on plant material, right? There's no getting away from that. We can live for a certain amount of time without food. We can live for a certain amount of time without liquid, but we can only live a very, very, very short time, not past with 5 minutes, or not very much past with 5 minutes without taking a breath.
Yep.
So that's a prana. And this prana is there for us. The universe actually breathes us. When you think about it, we don't need to be conscious of it. It happens. And it happens for everyone, whether one is a saint or a criminal. It does not matter. That is the full grace of a divine mother. Divine mother, which we also identified as Mother Nature, that gives all that nourishment here in this plane. Mother Prakriti, right? Divine nature. So this is how we view the aspect of Kalima. And yet she transcends also all of us. So it's both eminence that provides that concept of creation, and I'll talk a bit more about that concept of creation. To us, it's more manifestation or expansion and expression than creation itself. Creation is what we can witness with our senses. So we can see that something comes into being, is sustained, and then slowly deteriorates and transformed into something else and recycled. So it's that circular aspect of what you would call the creative spirit, the maintenance aspect, and then slowly the transformation of it, which to us we see as on a very linear basis. And in our Western society, in the Abrahamic religion, for example, they take a more linear perspective, where in the East, we take a more circular perspective. Things come and go and get transformed and appear into something else. So nothing can be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed, recycled, ad infinitum. That's the Shakti that allows that to happen. In order for the play of consciousness to be ever fresh, we go to a movie and we can see all kind of movies at the picture theater, right? Sometimes it's war movies, sometimes it's romance, sometimes it's horror movies, sometimes it's comedy movies, blah, blah, blah. It's all a reflection of the human psyche. You've got a screen there at the cinema that's blank, and there's light shining on the screen, and there are pictures and activities. Because of moving pictures, it gives the illusion of activity and interaction, right, on the screen. And if the actors are really good and the plot is interesting, we get captivated. All of a sudden, we forget about the external world and we are plunged into the activity of the screen, which is just a projection.
I love that.
We're dreaming at night. We experience various dreams sometimes. And in those dreams, if they are quite intense, we have corresponding physiological responses to those dreams, right? So if we've been chased and someone wants to murder us and it seems tangible, well, we're dreaming in that state, and all of a sudden we wake up and our heart is racing, we're sweating, and it might take a few seconds to go, oh, that was a dream, that was a nightmare, oh my God, it's not real, right? And we're quite shaken by it. This life, the process of awakening, is awakening from this dream.
Yep. 100%.
It's awakening from this dream. And so the Divine Mother is a matrix, the primal force for everything to be expressed. So to us, the process of creation, inverted comma, is not dualistic. It appears dualistic here on this plane. And if you look at it from day, night, all this kind of thing. There's various gradients of day and night. There's various gradients of light. There's various gradients of darkness. It's not absolute. The Abrahamic faith and the linear Western mindset tends to be black, black and white. There's no such thing as black and white. So that's different shade of darkness, different shade of light. That's what it is. It's a continuum. It's one stick. It's not two sticks in duality, good, bad, and the two sticks. In Tantra, it is one pole, one stick with two ends of a one stick. This is why we have such, a mythology in Hindu Dharma where you have devas and asuras, fighting each other, but they are essential. They both are essential part of one whole. The only thing that things are redressed is when things are out of balance. And we can see that in our society these days. Things are out of balance towards individual and collective destruction. What you mentioned before, people, in the West, we abuse our freedom. In a sense, because why? We don't take responsibility. That is the problem. If you want greater freedom, have more responsibility. Take more responsibility for yourself, for your life. That's how you gain freedom. That's how you gain mastery. It first starts with awareness. Like I mentioned before, awareness of body, awareness of emotions, awareness of the mind, awareness of awareness itself. However, it's not about judging. And again, this is the duality, what I would call it, of almost a bipolar perspective on things, right? And it's not about judging or justifying. So I often say to my students, observe yourself as you are, without justification. Don't give yourself excuses. And secondly, without judgment, because that's a guilt complex. It's a poor me. It's just ego saying, oh, poor me. It's no excuse for not doing and for not facing up to life and to yourself. So no judgment, no justification as such. And you'll break that concept of duality as a consequence. You'll break that. And this is part of taking responsibility and walking towards greater and greater internal freedom. So Tantra is about being in the world and sometimes being totally in the world, but not of it. Meaning you don't get colored by the projection that's there from society, from your, sometimes even from your ancestors, from all those things that hold you back from actually walking into the path of the unknown. So if you want to be free, you have to be comfortable, become more and more comfortable with the unknown, while taking full responsibility for your life. That is the true path of the adept, the left-hand path.
I agree 100%. I think that's one of the hardest things that people have, such a difficult time with is responsibility. I'm actually teaching my son right now. He's only 6 years old, but a lot of times something will happen and I'll say to him, what's going on in there? If him and his sister arguing, it's always, it was her that started and she did this. And lately we've been working on, like, honey, every time I go to correct you, it's always someone else did something. There's always a finger pointed. I'm like, it's okay to take responsibility. And I understand he's young, but I'm trying to teach him it's okay to take responsibility. Hey, I made a mistake. It's okay. But a lot of people don't want to take that responsibility because that's a scary thing, to be responsible for your own life. It's much easier to blame everyone and everything for why things are than to say, I'm the reason that I'm here. But I think that true freedom and liberation, as you mentioned, comes when I say I am responsible for my victories. I am responsible for my failures. No one else but me. But even when I face victory, don't celebrate and indulge in it. It's just a victory. And I think people lose themselves in those moments. And as you mentioned with like the Abrahamic faith, it's so beautiful when you look to the East, because bringing that maternal aspect in was there in the beginning. And Abrahamic faith removed that maternal aspect and made the paternal aspect. And they, for the longest time, had no female aspect in any part of the religion. And only until they started getting a lot of slack from it did then Mother Mary pop up as an important figure. And most people don't realize that in Christianity. Guys out there listening, at one point in Christianity, Mother Mary wasn't important at all. She was minute in the whole story. But only after a lot of people started to kind of question, well, why are they um so hard on females and not bringing any important character? And then all of a sudden it was made the Holy Blessed Virgin Mother, and then they started to push that aspect, and now it's a very important part of Christianity in the modern world. But that is sad, because most all important and ancient religions had that feminine aspect, and once that's removed, it is an imbalance. You can't have that imbalance, because you will start to see it. And that's why too much paternal energy, too much male energy, is also why there is so much war, why there is so much imbalance, so much judgment, so much hatred, so much condemnation from the Abrahamic faith to other faiths in the world. And I only speak for myself, folks, no one else's opinion, but that's why there is so many problems in a lot of senses, is because of that imbalance. And it's unfortunate. I do love the analogy that you gave of the movie screen. I think that is beautiful, because I think we're so wrapped up in our projection of life that we forget that we are endless spirits having a physical experience. And it's just an experience, guys. This isn't the end game. This is only a small flash in the pan. And until you learn to live that right, just like your body, you will come here again and again and again, and you will relive it as different people, as different names, as different experiences, until you reach a level where you can either not have to come back or choose to come back for specific reasons. And that's a beautiful thing. So you are a prisoner in this illusion for a long time, until you can learn that the prison is made by you. You are a prisoner of your own prison. And once you learn to just open up the bars and walk out, you can be free of that. But most people never want to see those bars for what they truly are.
No, and it's more comfortable to be in the prison, because
Yep.
you know what to expect, than to open the door and go venture into the unknown.
I think it was Plato's Republic where he talked about the people sitting in the jail cell, and they're watching the shadows on the wall. And it's entertaining, like the movie screen, where they're
Mm.
so enthralled by the shadows on the wall because they've been a prisoner so long, that this entertainment is so captivating to them that they've never taken the time to turn around and realize that the jail cell wasn't locked. They could walk out at any point, but they're so captivated by the shadows that they continue to be prisoners even though they weren't. And I think that speaks volumes, just like your analogy of the movie theater. I think that is very, very important. And I think you also mentioned that there really isn't this linear line.
Mm.
Things are circular. And I think that we try in the West to make it that way. And that reminds me of one of the 7 principles of Hermeticism, where it says that there's only varying degrees of the same thing. There is no, when does cold start to become hot and hot start to become cold? They're just on a spectrum, of a wheel. There is no exact absolute in that regard. So I think that is an important statement for people to understand also. Now we have a comment here. It said, absolutely on the dreams. Thank you, Natasha. I agree. And that's a good way to look at it. Now, one of the other questions I want to ask, since we are currently talking about Kali Ma, is going to be, let's see, I have it written down here. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Kali Ma is fierce and compassionate. What role do you see her playing in our present global crisis, from ecological collapse to war to human conflict? What role is she currently playing or can play in these important times, where I feel like we're at a crossroads right now in the world, all around, in many, many ways. And it's evident for anybody who has eyes to see that we're at a precipice right now.
Yes, definitely as the destroyer. And when we look at the word, the source of the word Kali, it comes from Sanskrit Kala, which means time. And so Kali appears fierce for for the ego that's trapped in time. And this is why, as practitioners, we offer our head to Kalima symbolically for her to take it from us, so we can go from a state of being locked in time to the eternal. And as long as the mass consciousness is locked in time, therefore in the ego, will there always be conflict. Now, we know at the moment it's come to a head. For some, this is a Kali Yuga, which means the age of darkness. Even though we evolved tremendously technologically wise, and you could say we are in a golden age for such a Yuga in regards to technology, but in regards to character, in regards to how we perceive and live our life, we have gone backwards. We've gone into a state of darkness, so to speak. We have given our power away to materialism. We have given our power away to the ego demand and to the constant demand of a society that we feel prisoner in. And this is why, also what you mentioned before, with this connection with that mother aspect, this is why we become so destructive towards nature, because it becomes just something to misuse and abuse. Everything is here for our use, not for our misuse or abuse, because we'll pay a price, individually and collectively. It's inherent. We cannot get away from that. You could say it's an aspect of what in the East is called Dharma. And Dharma means foundation. Like if you want to build a building that will stay up and be solid, it needs to have a strong foundation. Dharma is a strong foundation for harmony within the individual and for harmony within society. So what is Dharma? First of all, again, take responsibility. That's the bottom line of Dharma, take responsibility. So if you, for example, like yourself, a father, be a father. Take on that role. Be responsible in that role, right? You can't get away from it. If you do that, you'll create harmony for yourself, for your family, with your children, etc. Once we have harmony for ourselves in the environment, it adds to the harmony that's in society, or it counterbalances the disharmony that's there. So we each have a role to play. The other aspect of Dharma is what's called righteousness. And what I mean by righteousness means the right use-ness of something. Everything has its own character, its own nature. So wisdom is about learning about the nature of something and therefore living within that, right? It leads to right use of something. When we know the right use of something, we can prosper for ourselves and for society as large. So, we cannot destroy nature and not have an impact on that. We cannot. So it's about, we are not separate from nature. We are ourselves an aspect of nature. This body, these senses is all part of nature. We cannot get away from that, right? The spirit soul is transcendental to that, but for the moment being, it's also having an individual experience through this form. So we have to look after this form, and we have to look after our environment. Then we will prosper, and that prosperity can be maintained. The way that we are living our lives currently, it's not sustainable. And again, this is, if I use the analogy of the devas and asuras fighting one another, the asuric aspect of ourselves at the moment as a society, a destructive aspect of self, is out of balance. And because it's out of balance, we are suffering as a consequence of it. Absolutely. So Ma, embodies both, because being in time, our journey as human beings, as one of my teachers used to say, is from sperm to worm, and from womb to tomb. All right. So we'll all get to have two certificates in life without working overly hard for it at all. One is a birth certificate, and the other one at the end of the journey is a death certificate. What matters is what we do between worm and sperm and worm, and worm and tomb. That's what matters, right? The other things will take care of itself. We've been given the ultimate gift of expression, which is the human form. So it's up to us through discernment. Developing discernment is very important because we can discern. Once we have discernment, we can ask ourselves the right question, and such as, what is the most empowering path or action I can take for myself now? And unless we come to that stand within ourselves, growth will be illusory and mastery will be illusory. So that this is of supreme importance. So what we see here is nature fighting back, and because we have created such a toxic environment for ourselves, we are actually drowning in our own toxicity. So how to counteract that? It's by, again, being in a world by not of it. Don't get drawn into all the emotional garbage that's out there. Think for yourself, develop discernment, develop critical thinking, and behind closed doors, develop your practices. Be dedicated, be determined, be disciplined, because discipline at the end of the day is what will save us. And it starts with us. There's no get away from it. You can do all the marches you want to do in the world, you can protest, you can do this. I'm not saying don't do that, but nothing will change unless we are transformed. Like Gandhi used to say, be the change that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with us. Again, that's self-responsibility. And I'm not saying it's easy, but we can make it fun and we can make it empowering for ourselves. That's the main thing. So, like one of my very close students says, and I'll quote him here, when he says, the best that we can do, there's enough arseholes out there, the best thing we can do is not to add to it.
Yep.
Becoming one ourselves. So I think that is the crux of the thing.
I think it is discipline, and as you said, it is key, and to not add to that pile of weakness, because it is so easy to be weak. It's hard to be strong, as we mentioned earlier. And discipline. My friend Natasha, she helps run our temple, who commented earlier. We talk about this a lot on our other show, where one of the pillars of your practice has to be discipline and dedication. It has to be. You can't expect to achieve any heights if you're only doing your spirituality on the weekends. If you're a weekend warrior, you're never going to reach anything. It has to, and people say, well, it's hard because I don't have the time. Well, no shit, it's hard. It's going to be hard. You don't fit occultism into your life or spirituality into your life. You fit your life into spirituality. And I think that is something that most people don't understand is you find the time to get up earlier. And I use this a lot with my own personal path. I don't have to get up for work until 7 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 4:45 in the morning. And that is to do stretching, lifting, breathing exercises, ritual, meditation, prayers, start my day. And by doing that day in and day out. Am I tired at times? Yes. Is it hard? Is there days I wake up and I'm like, I really don't want to get up right now? Yes. But I'll tell you what, if you force yourself up, you walk down to your temple, you sit there, and you're about 15, 20 minutes in, you're grooving, you're feeling it. You every time are like, I'm happy I'm here. I'm happy I got up. I'm happy I overcame the weakness that was about to hold me back, because there's always weaknesses in every turn. There are going to be traps for you, whether that is drugs, whether that is sex, whether that is alcohol, whether that's laziness, whether that's gluttony. They are there as traps in this matrical system that has been built to pull us down from achieving greatness, because we are being tested by divinity, because we are divinity. Do you have what it takes to find me again, or are you going to allow yourself to fail? And 95% of the people out there, guys, are going to fail again and again. There's only that small number. We talked about the 1,000-petal lotus, and its frequency, is 144,000. And in the Bible, they talked about the sacred 144,000 that would make it to heaven, right? That is all saying that there's only so many people that can achieve God consciousness. And that is done through a tremendous, tremendous amount of work. So don't be one adding to the assholes. As I said, there's enough of them. Don't add to it. Try to be that one that perfects themselves and reaches to new heights. I
And
did want to go ahead.
On that, that's why my students I say there's practice on the cushion and off the cushion. And on the meditation cushion or in front of your altar, whatever you're doing as a practice is to grow that core, right? Is to elevate that Shakti. And the real test is out there. It's in the world. The real test is in the world.
It is, because you're going to be constantly tested.
As you lift up your energy, you lift up the energy of your environment, of your interactions. So it's never about losing awareness of that divine self. So you build up that kernel on the meditation cushion, so to speak, in front of your altar, and you take that potentialized aspect into the world and never lose aspect of it. This is why, again, in the yoga tradition, and yoga means union with the divine self. That's what yoga is. It's not just about stretching, asanas, and a bit of relaxation and a bit of pranayama. It's much more than that. So that's why there's different aspects of yoga. There's a yoga of knowledge, where you find out, you educate yourself about the developing discernment about what's real and unreal, what's permanent and impermanent. There's the yoga of, for example, of work, the yoga of devotion. The yoga of devotion is about seeing that divine self within yourself and within all selves, practicing that. And the mantras that you do in front of your altar, in front of the deities, for example, reading the spiritual scriptures on devotion to the divinity, all of that you take into the world, and you practice the presence of a deity within yourself and within all selves there. That is Bhakti Yoga. And you serve a deity in all activity. This is why it's essential to have a relationship with a deity. For us, as Tantrics, especially the left-hand path, it's Kalima. So when we cook our food, whatever we do, we offer it to at the altar of Kalima, chanting the mantras and so forth, and then we eat from it. This then, the vibration of the food or the drink has the vibration of Kalima through chanting of the mantras and presentation to Ma. When we take that in, it means it lifts up at an organic level, at a physical level, and at a subtle body level, our energy. We become closer to her. So for us with a deity, especially from a tantric perspective, we have a living relationship with a deity. We can actually feel the deity within us and around us. And this is through devotion. This is through commitment to the practices. This is also commitment to finding out more about the deity. It's like when you fall in love with somebody, you want to know more about it. It's no different. It's the greatest love affair there is.
100%.
Yeah. And here with Kalima, because we're talking about the actual prime mover of the universe, that nothing would actually express without the Shakti, right? She's the embodiment of what we call the Adya Mahaparashakti, the origin of power itself. And she's a divine womb. And when we look at it, females have 3 wombs, we have 2 wombs inside ourselves. So we have 2 common wombs between the male and the female have 1 more. Obviously, the one that we don't have is the ability to incubate life and give life. That's reserved for the female form. But we have a cave. Both have the womb of a heart, the space of a heart where the deity can live there. And here we create mental children. So the matrix, the unconscious mind, which is the darkness of our potential there is where we incubate our mental children to take birth, is through seeding the unconscious with a conscious, focused thought, energized by feelings, by emotions, in order to come alive. And then we nurture that and we manifest that on the outside, squaring the circle, so to speak. Yeah? To make that reality, giving birth to. So not only do we give birth to physical children, but we give birth to mental children. And we don't realize that. So again, it's awareness. What I mentioned before, that a fourfold awareness. One of that awareness, which is more subtle than the body and more subtle than the emotion, we can feel the emotions. But thoughts happen all the time. Images happen all the time. Memories happen all the time. And we identify with those things. And then we say, I'm this personality. I'm like this. No, I believe this. It's just thoughts, images, and memories playing you.
It's that movie screen that you mentioned. It's taking a step back from the projection of what you think you are and seeing it as still frames. And when you no longer attach yourself to the thoughts, to the visions, to the memories, to the history, to the future, and you just are, that's when you find that divine seed. And what's interesting about that is you said that the mental children, it's interesting that people always are looking outwards to try to better their life. But with that discipline, folks, that we talked about, and that dedication, that daily practice, by not attaching yourself to anything, what'll start to happen is those mental children that Bubba's talking about do go out into the world and they bring you the things you need. You no longer need for anything because you've come to such a peace that a lot of the exterior things in the world don't mean anything. And instead of chasing them like you always did and not having them, you now are no longer chasing them and they come to you. It's a very strange paradox how that works. You chase it, you don't get it. You don't chase it, it comes. But that is about the work. That is the direct, fruiting of the work that you've put in. You will start to see through the work, but only if you're doing the work.
Correct. Absolutely. And most people most people are not fearful of death. They're fearful of life.
Yeah. That's a strong statement right there. That they are. I think
Yeah.
people say that I'm afraid to die, and it's like, no, I think you're afraid to live, because you're not living right now. You are dying right now, sir, because of the way you're living. You're living in death rather than living in life, and that's the problem. You need to live in life, and then you won't worry about death too much.
And that's why in Tantra we have a paradigm of Eros and Thanatos, right? Because all life wants to live, wants to express in its own essence, right? So for us in Tantra, it's really the art and science of self-expression, self-actualization, and self-realization, right? Realizing the self within. And it's very hard to do unless we're not expressing our true nature as Swadharma, the reason, our whys from being here. Yet there's a greater why eventually of self-realization, but in between that, before that, we've come to express, whether it was compelled or impelled by what we call karma, action and reaction, or whether there's some skaras, grooves in consciousness, which we make out to be our reality and who we are, which then compels us through that imprinting to take another birth, either in this dimension or another dimension for expression. Right? Often it's compelled or impelled, instead of being through freedom, through choice as such. So when we get to a point of choice, and there can be no choice without awareness and discernment. Impossible.
Yep.
Absolutely impossible. So when we come to that place of viveka, of discernment, yeah, and that place of awareness, then we can start to have true choices made in freedom, not compelled or impelled by environment or what we've been told, by religion, by the state, by our relatives, by our social set, by community, society, and so forth. So then we can start to see for ourselves we can start to perceive truly for ourselves, and we can start to make choices truly for ourselves. And therefore, we come to the state of true self-expression. As a consequence, we are fulfilling our swadharma. A painter must paint, no matter how hard it is. No matter if the problem I think in our modern society, I think, oh, like, I need to make money from a painting and I want to live on it for that, etc., etc. And they put themselves under terrible stress, right? And then they achieve nothing at all, because then they're unable to sustain themselves, and therefore either their passion will crumble, or then they will have to go back into the workplace, and then they let go of a passion. No, a painter must paint no matter what the cost is. Even if the cost is, hey, find a job or couple of jobs to sustain yourself, so you get that out of the way, so then in your free time you can focus on your painting. Whether you sell them or not is irrelevant. If your swadharma is to express artistically, for example, then do that no matter what. Find a way to do that, right? So don't look at it necessarily to sustain yourself. Do whatever you need to do to sustain yourself in order for you to paint. This is just an example.
No, I love that. It's living your true will. People make a mistake a lot of times when they say, they go back to the old adage of Aleister Crowley, and they misunderstand that when he said, do what thou wilt, and they think, well, just do whatever you want. And it's like, no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying to live your true will, to live your true passion as an expression of divinity here on earth in this plane. Because as you mentioned earlier, it can be looked at as a punishment being here. And in a way, it is in its own sense that you can get stuck in the karmic loop again and again of reincarnation. But at the same time, it can also be looked at as beautiful that we're given chance time and time again to experience the fruits of this life. And sometimes we fall victim to it, sometimes we rise above, but we can experience as life as different people, as different ethnicities, as different sexes, or with different sexual preferences. We get to experience a lot of different things, but it's important that you find your true will in it so that you're flourishing and living your life the way that incarnation was meant to be lived. And that's how you tap into divinity, through that divine will.
Exactly. And so in other words, be who you are and look at every challenge as an opportunity. Sometimes we see challenges as tremendous or an opposition to what we want, or etc. No, look at challenges as opportunities. How is a pearl made? Through irritation.
Yep.
If everything was easy, would we really bother? We would get bored. So a nugget, a diamond is formed by tremendous pressure. Yeah.
That's a big thing.
To your challenges, embrace them, see them as opportunities. Sometimes we may set a goal in life, and then all of a sudden a storm comes and our ship is deviated. It's an opportunity to learn from it, but also to adjust the sail.
Yep.
So in life, we tend to be so rigid. Yeah, it's good to have a goal. Absolutely. Absolutely. Without a vision, people perish, right? It is said in the Bible. But have a vision for yourself, for your life, and ask yourself, be honest with yourself, because without honesty, you're going to live a lie. You're going to live a spiritual lie. You're going to live a lie, full stop, in your life. So ask yourself, without judgment, without justification, what do you really, really want?
And people don't do that. People avoid that. So many people say, I want to do this, and I have dreams and aspirations of doing this, this, and this. And they don't know they're lying, maybe, but you can sense it, and you're like, that's not true. Well, of course it is. No, it isn't. You need to dig deeper, because if you start digging in, I think you'll see that those 5 things you just mentioned, not one of them is what you actually want to be doing. It's over here, and you've been suppressing that your whole life. And only when you discover that will you be happy, and only then will the things start to fall in your life, as we mentioned earlier. Rather than seeing like the world is against you, it's because you are against the world by not living your will. You find it and you are in balance now. You have that equilibrium and things flow to you. Everything's about vibration and flow. And if you are in the wrong channel, it's beating you rather than flowing with it. It's like trying to swim upstream. You can do that and try to get to the shore. You're probably going to drown, but if you just turn around and go with the current, you can get to the shore a lot quicker, and it's going to be a smooth operation.
And this is the concept that in the West we struggle with, the concept of surrender. And it's not just surrender doing nothing, because people tend, especially in the West, to extreme. Surrender means, oh, do nothing and let life carry me. And then there's the other aspect, oh no, surrender, I'm not going to surrender. That means that, I have no free will. And these two things are misconceptions, totally. On the spiritual path, take responsibility and do your utmost. Then let go.
Yep.
Because sometime on a spiritual path, we need to have first of all, we need to have a solid ego, an integrated ego. Most people struggle in life with spirituality or so-called mundane life. They struggle because they don't have a consolidated ego. They don't have a solid ego. So they're drawn here, drawn there, easily distracted. They're easily carried away and influenced by their environment. And to such a state, they cannot differentiate between themselves and the environment anymore. So they are at mercy of circumstances instead of looking at opportunities. So what happens is that they have nothing to surrender that's of any value. This is why I had part of one of my lineage down south of India, and this particular guru was known as the Lion of Pondicherry, because he was very fierce. He did not stand for any nonsense. And people used to come to him, say, Swamiji, I want to surrender, I want to abandon everything, and I want to renounce, etc. And so Swami Gitnanda used to look at him and say, okay, do you work? No. Okay, do you own property, a house? No. Are you married? No. Do you have kids? No. And he looked at him and says, get the hell out of here. What are you surrendering?
Yeah.
What are you renouncing? Get out of here. Go and get a life, then come back. So this is live life, going back to what I was saying before, live life fully. Know what you want. Do it. Just do it. Right? Be totally present. Bring the divinity within yourself. Do what you need to do. Be fully present while doing it.
I think that's a big thing. I think people being in the present moment is very hard for them, because I think most people walk around, as you said, they're not a consolidated ego, as you mentioned. They are an abundance of multiple influences, and a lot of that spiritual influences, they're coming across beings that they don't even understand, who are pulling them different ways. And you are an instrument, folks. You are a vessel, but first and foremost, you are your vessel. It's okay to let other things in when you choose to, but don't be controlled by them. But we're swayed different directions. And once you consolidate that, you get rid of a lot of that extra buzz that is around you, but people don't want to do that. And there was another point there, and I lost it during that last thing I said. But consolidating that down is going to make for a more streamlined process in your life, because that extra noise is going to do just that. It's going to cause a lot of extra noise. And, we shouldn't be searching for noise. We should be searching for peace. So stop complicating yourself and making a bunch of noise that doesn't need to be there, because then you get drowned out by your own noise and you can't hear anything. And then we run around looking for something that we can't find because we're blocking it out.
That's very true. And that's why sometimes people on the spiritual path look for phenomena. Yep. Right? Unless there's phenomena, they get bored. or if it doesn't, if that a certain phenomena they're expecting is not, or a transformation is not happening quick enough, they get bored. And ultimately, yes, there may be things happening, that there may be some Shakti working through our vehicle and having certain experiences. We may even have darshan of a deity, sight of a deity through dreams, meditation, or in actuality. The deity may manifest within ourselves, right? Within, outside even ourselves, present itself that way. But this is not the ultimate. The ultimate is to go to the very source, which is ultimately beyond phenomena itself.
It's the journey, and I tell people that all the time, is stop looking at the reward of the journey as the goal, and look as the journey is the goal. The 1,000 days of repetition of mantras, the 1,000 days of praying with nothing happen, that is the reward. Not the moment that a being comes down, you see it, you experience something crazy. Yes, we all love that. It's enthralling. It gets our heart racing. It's a beautiful thing. Absolutely. I'm not taking away from it. But those 1,000 days of nothing happening, you staying dedicated and disciplined, is the reward. It is beautiful because you are staying true to yourself. You're staying true to your spirits, and you're working day in and day out. And as you reflect backwards on it, you are so thankful of those 1,000 days if you're true to your practice. But for the people who are bitching and complaining, oh, I've done 20 rituals, or I've spent the last 100 days working, nonstop and nothing's happened. If that is the mindset you're coming into it with, you should quit now and never be a spiritualist of any kind, because you don't live in expectancy of something. You live in reverence of your spirits, and in return, you will receive when and how you should receive. It doesn't work on your idea of a timeline. It works on divinity's idea of a timeline. And if you stay steady to the path and just live your spiritual life, it will fall into line. But the moment that you start complaining that it didn't happen on your timeline, or you start looking at it like my only benchmarkers to weigh my progress is the big boom moments, then you're really, really missing the point. Now, before we go any further on that, I do want to jump in a couple of these other questions, because we're having a great conversation, but there's a few here I definitely want to hit because I really want to pick your brain on. One of them is, living in Australia, a
Yes.
land with its own deep indigenous spiritual traditions, have you found points of resonance or dialogue between your tantric paths and the dreamtime cosmologies of the Aboriginal people?
Well, it's interesting. In the past, I was in connection with some of the elders of our Aboriginal communities, including Nunkaris, which are healers. And I hosted a healer, and Uncle Harry. He was incredible. He was even invited to our Women's and Children's Hospital to do healing on the children there.
Okay.
And I witnessed one of his healing where he healed someone of a throat cancer, actually. And what was interesting is that, he would have a person on a massage table, for example, and he would use prana. He would breathe. He would sense the energy body of a person, and kind of bring back together. He would say, "Oh, the string is broken here," meaning that almost like the nadis, the psychic pathway, was blocked. So he would do a physical action above the body of a person, corresponding to the subtle body, to remove that blockage by bringing that energy flow together, so he could fly again, and he would breathe into it as such.
Hmm.
And so I found that fascinating with the concept of in our tradition of the subtle body, which is replete with 72,000 nadis, right? Of which are energy pathways within the subtle body, where the prana flows. Both feeding, if you like to put it that way, feeding energetically the physical body and the mind and the senses. And so I found that fascinating. And then also with our Aboriginal people, when they do dances, calling in certain spirits of the land, you'll notice that as they chant, they also stamp their feet, of course, stamp the ground. They're stamping on the ground. And what we're doing that, we've been told we're raising the earth Kundalini through that. And so the ley line, what we would call the ley lines, are there. That is the subtle body of the earth itself. And because they're traditionally, they're tremendously connected to the land and to the spirits of the animals and the spirit of the ancestors. From that one cosmology of our indigenous people here. So I found interesting the parallel in those traditions from that perspective.
No, that is very interesting, and I'm very thankful that you shared that with us, because that was just a thought that I had. Is Australia is such a beautiful country, and it has such a rich and vast history of the Aboriginal people and their practices, which are often not very well known by the rest of the world. But there is a parallel between the tantric practices and the Aboriginal people that I could see, and I just thought that that was such a cool thing to be able to hear your input as someone who lives there but practices tantra. So thank you for that. We have time for probably two, maybe three more. They're all related, but all three different aspects of the Aghor or the Aghori practices. First, I wanted to ask that the Nath and Aghor traditions are often misunderstood as extreme or frightening from the outside. What do you feel is the most radical misconception about Aghor practices that you would like to dispel to the listeners out there?
Mm. Aghor is for the very few, and you cannot get initiated with the name Aghor online. No, absolutely not. Like I said, in order to receive truly the Aghor initiation, and look, I'm that's my traditional perspective, is to go to India first to have a living master, and then to go into India and be initiated at the cremation grounds, especially at Varanasi. It can be elsewhere as well, but in particular, what we call the home of Shiva and Bharat, which is at Varanasi there, at the cremation ghats, to be initiated there by a living guru after going through some training. And the Aghor tradition is not for everyone, absolutely not. It's a certain predisposition. And some people can achieve the process of enlightenment, self-realization by other paths in Sanatana Dharma, or outside of the Hindu tradition. And yes, because of the practices involving the cremation ground, um, facing death, doing transgressive practices, and so forth, it's not for everyone. Some would it's not for their predisposition, so to speak, their personality, and it's not needed for them. For other people that are attracted to it, sometimes they're attracted for the very wrong reason, as such. They come to the path with existing mental instabilities, and traveling that path, they're going to truly travel that path. No sane teacher would actually allow them to travel that path. But if they do, they risk severe mental breakdown.
True. True, it could push someone to a psychological breaking point if
Mm.
it's not handled correctly. And I think that that's important, because you do have a lot of people who just self-proclaim. Like I said, I've met people have used the moniker of Aghori before, but they have no teacher. They have never been to India. They have no connection in any other possible way to the tantric lineage, other than they've read some books, and now they're like, "Well, I am an Aghori," and it's like, "But you're not, brother. You certainly are not." But if it makes you feel better to call yourself that, hey, who am I to tell you different? Yaya Donna Demorci said, have you observed changes in the frequencies of the practice depending on the geographic locations and landscapes that you've practiced within? And if so, what do you observe? So if you're practicing in Australia compared to America, compared to India, what kind of differences in frequencies and potencies have you experienced elsewhere?
This is why it's useful to go on pilgrimage. Because on pilgrimage, it's either where, like in India, for example, it's either where there's been an appearance of a goddess, of a god there. And so that creates a certain vortex where if you know and if you can actually be present and surrender, and if you got some spiritual practice, especially mantras that are in alignment with that particular presence, then you can experience, like I said, darshan, for example, a sight of the actual deity, and your energy will be more rapidly transformed, so to speak, right? So the presence of a deity can be more predominant in those areas because of the actual physical appearance, manifestation of that deity there, or because there's been or because there's been seriously advanced practitioners in a lineage that's either lived there and practiced there for a big part of their life. So the energy vibration does not dissipate; it's actually impregnated within the murti, or within the temple, or within the natural environment, within the precinct of a place. So when you go there, if you have a connection with that deity or that teacher, or because of your guru that's got a link to that particular master, then you're more likely to have experience a closer relationship, and therefore your vibration will go up correspondingly there. Absolutely.
Yep,
Um,
makes 100% sense.
and also, yogis in the past, and still to some extent to the present, used to practice or have their ashrams close in nature, so closer to forests and running rivers, etc., because of the purity of a life force there.
Hmm.
So much easier to tap into a pure, unadulterated prana, which uplifts your consciousness. So living closer to nature is highly beneficial to actually having clearer, so to speak, experiences, and to expand one's awareness. Much easier to do so. Um, Also, creating our own environment is very important. If you want to create your own landscape, this is why if you can have a room, or at least a corner somewhere of a room dedicated to your practices. And regularity, rhythm, and repetition are the key to unlock, to go deeper within the self and to get a deeper connection to the deity. Right? Regularity, rhythm, and repetition, as you mentioned before. And so, if we dedicate a space, for example, to Kalima there, chant her mantras there, wake up, make our ablutions, recite the mantras, give offerings to her in the morning, same at midday, evening with our meals, etc., have an evening ritual, etc. The area builds up in energy. And I have a personal experience when, after my first trip to India, I was already a devotee of Kalima and I had an altar dedicated to her, and I had shifted my altar to my bedroom while I was away because the space that was normally the public space was going to be used for other things. So I wanted to retire the altar to my bedroom. And after my 3 months visit, my first visit to India, after 3 months when I came back, I got very sick and almost actually lost my life. And after being treated in the hospital and coming back home, I was weak. And when I laid in bed and the altar was next to me, this is years of practice I've done around the altar, instantly, this is not through imagination or visualization, instantly as I lay down in bed, the energy from the altar that was next to me came through me and filled me with energy.
That's beautiful. And it should. I think there's a potency there, and there needs to be. And that is like, for example, even my temple, because of the daily in and outs of practice nonstop, there is a different resonance and I don't know what the word would be, compression almost of that room. You can walk anywhere else in the house, it feels like a normal house. I'm even right now in my studio, you don't feel it, and it's just beyond this wall. But the second you break the threshold of that door into the temple, there's a very different vibrational energy.
Yes.
Not bad, not heavy, but saturated. You can feel it. So as you were laying in bed, I'm sure returning home, being in that ill state, so devoted to your goddess that I would imagine at that point she's seen that and did saturate you with that energy, which I would, and I don't want to speak for you, but I would imagine was a big part of your healing.
Absolutely. And so in order to be fed, feed. So this is the importance of doing fire ceremonies to the gods, of making offerings to the gods, because when you feed them, their presence come, and in turn you'll be fed.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
what you contribute genuinely will come back to you.
And I'm big on that with the Kimbanda practice. That is a huge thing. That there's offerings of food, there's offerings of animals, there's offerings of a lot of things to these spirits because you are constantly feeding them and giving them energy. And as you said, when you need something in return, they then feed you. It is that reciprocal relationship of giving and getting and receiving. And if you're not giving, why would they give to you? And that's what a lot of practitioners I don't think understand, especially
Yeah.
on an American or Western left-hand path. A lot of times people are calling these spirits, they're not giving them shit. They're like, oh, I drew your sigil. It's like, well, that's cool. What are you giving the spirit? They're like, well, I poured a glass of wine. I'm like, but what else did you do? No,
Yeah.
you gave them nothing, but you're asking for A, B, C, and D.
Mm.
Would you, if your neighbor came knocking on your door over and over again and kept asking for things, would you, and they never gave you anything, would you give them anything? No, you're going to be like, dude, stop knocking on my door.
Mm.
That's what you're doing to your spirit. So it has to be a reciprocal relationship, and people don't
Yeah.
seem to understand that.
And the highest devotion is to ask for nothing. Then you get everything.
Yep.
So I
Like
had,
you mentioned earlier. Yep. You don't even have to seek it. It just comes.
telling up pure devotion, and then I would have a thought. I thought, oh God, I feel like a mango. I kid you not. 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, someone would come knocking my door, whether it's a student or friend, said, oh, gone past, I was thinking of you, and they give me a mango.
Yep. It just falls. It falls right into your lap. It's weird how that happens. I had my career change years ago, where I simply sat down and reflected very deeply where I was in my career path and where I wanted to go with my career path. And I thought to myself, I need a change. I'm going to make some changes coming up. It needs to happen. And I decided where I wanted to go with my career. It's still within the same company, different division of the company, what I had my eyes set on for a while, but I says, now is the time. I was at my altar at the time. I had just got done doing a rite. I didn't specifically ask for this. It was just I gave my offering. I was thankful. And afterwards, in reflection, these thoughts came to mind. The next morning, when I woke up, I received a phone call from the boss of that division. And I was like, okay, we knew each other, but not like that. So I answered. And hey, do you know anybody that's looking to want to join this division of the company? And I was like thrown for a moment. I'm like, I would love to join that division. He's like, would you? And obviously, I think he was calling on to see if I wanted to, but he can't specifically ask. It was crazy. I hadn't talked to this guy in a long time. That's where I want to go. This is what I need in my life. Very next morning, not even 12 hours had passed. Phone call. Are you interested pretty much in working for this division? And it was one of those things that I went to my goddess and was like, thank you. Thank you so much. Big offering again, because I didn't even need to ask you. I expected, once again, nothing and received tenfold. And there's a lot of beauty in the not asking, as you said, and just being humble.
Yeah.
Now, I know we are running out of time. One last question and we'll let you go because I know it's late there. What time is it there?
Well, it's no, it's midday, 6 past midday.
Oh shit. Okay, so it's early there. It's
Friday the 22nd of August.
So it's Friday the 22nd midday, and it's almost 11 o'clock p.m. here. So it's huge time difference, guys. So once again, we're so appreciative of you being here. The last question I will ask is, obviously the Aghor practice often confronts mortality directly, sitting in
Hmm.
cremation in carnal grounds, meditating upon death, and even with bones.
Yep.
What has your personal practice taught you about death itself, and how has it informed the way that you've chosen to live?
Excellent question. I'll say that there's nothing to fear about it. Neither is there anything to fear about life. They are just two poles of existence. You know, whoever takes birth will die physically. And it's just a transition. That's all it is. It's an opportunity. It's a door that can lead to either another incarnation here on earth or somewhere else. Okay? In transition. That is all. It's also a great gateway to eternity. But first, in order for that to become a gateway to eternity, because we don't know when death's going to knock on the door. So some of the practice we do is to become very comfortable with death. So when it comes knocking on the door, whether consciously or unconsciously, we're to die in our sleep, for example, or in an accident, that we can easily transition. So everything, as my guru would say, everything is a preparation for something else, as such. So be totally present, embrace life in its totality. And if you do that, part of totality is the experience of the transition that we call death. We experience death every day, but we don't realize we do. The moment that just passed is gone. It's only in our memory. That's a micro death in itself.
Yep.
Cells in our body are constantly dying and being renewed. I think bones are totally transformed to new bone every 7 years. That's the most tangible
They do,
aspect.
yep. Every 7 years, yep.
So those cells from 7 years ago are dead. They're gone. They experience their own death internally for us. What's here is elsewhere. What's not here is nowhere else. So it's a natural process. Yeah, so we keep the play fresh. The play gets going because of the cycle of life and death. Existence is a tension, polarity, so to speak, between life and death. That's existence. Yeah? So there's nothing to fear. Embrace life in its totality with that understanding, and death will be just a walk in the park, a transition, totally. And when you look at the cremation ground, there's two aspects to understand and transcend the fear around death, etc., is to face it. So when we go in India in the cremation ground, here you can do the cemetery, but in India it's more graphic. And spending time in both in Varanasi, the cremation ground, but also in Tarapit, in Bengal, in the north of India, where Aghoris go to practice the cremation ground practices. And there we sit on a mount where previously our body's been burnt to ashes. And you could say life is ashes to ashes, dust to dust, moment to moment. And we sit there, we have certain practices we do. We purify our speech, etc., by imbibing the ashes of the dead. So we consume the ashes of the dead. It's a homeopathic remedy, you could call it that. It's a remedy against the fear of death by eating it, by witnessing it. So we witness death next door. We see the body come in, the family crying, howling. They bring the stretcher with the plank with the body on it, wrapped in white because that's the color of death. And there's a pyre built up. So we're probably at a distance of, maybe 10 meters. Was that in feet? I don't know what feet because we use metric, but 10 meters, not that far, right? And we see the eldest son with the shaved, because he's the one that with the priest going to set the pyre on fire traditionally. The mantras are chanted, etc., and the pyre is set alight. And we can see the body burning. We can smell it. And then we see the white cloth dissolving. And then we see the body burning. And we can see through the body by the time. We can see the organs. And we can see the flesh and organs boiling away. And I remember one time, one of the legs, this elderly person that was being burned, fell off from the pyre to roll on the hill. And then the dom, which is part of the people looking after the dead body there, had two sticks, grabbed the leg and chucked it back on the pyre. And this was very close. You could see this. And my guru looked at me and says, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm perfectly fine." And so part of that practice is to embrace death and then to visualize our loved one on this pyre, right, as part of meditation, because we'll all get there. And then to visualize ourselves on that pyre burning away, because that's where we all end up as well. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And the cycle continues. Then we may meditate later on that hill and imbibe the ashes of the dead there.
And I think that's very powerful, because I think that people become too sensitized to things where they can't face it because they're so sensitized to it. To see such a visceral experience, such as that leg rolling down, to most would be shocking, disturbing, and disgusting. But at the same time, that is death. That is facing death head on. And we do understand that we are not the body. You're not watching the life force that you knew as that person burning. You were watching just simply the vehicle that they operated within. And I'm a strong advocate on bones and necromantic practices. As anybody that knows me, all you need to change your perspective on things, guys, is if you have a human skull, for example, and you hold that and you meditate upon that for a while and realize that you were holding this vessel that was truly the brain, jar of this individual, but that's not that individual. And as you start to stare at it, it'll start to change you over time as you meditate on it. And as you said, a very strong practice, but it's very disturbing for most. You just mentioned picturing your loved ones on the funeral pyre. That is very hard for most people to do, but it is a very powerful and potent practice to envision the ones that you love the most dead, gone, cremated, and vanished. It's hard. Tears might fall. It might cause reactions in you that you don't quite know how to face, but that means that you needed to face them. And a lot of people don't. It's just like chod exercises in the graveyard. You envision being destroyed. You envision being torn apart and dismembered, but it does something to you and frees you. It releases a weight that's on you that you don't even know that you carry until you cut the rope. And I think that that is a beautiful thing. I've always had a firm respect for the Aghor practices because of the fact of pushing yourself past duality, pushing yourself past the fear of fear, because too many people fear fear. It's not even fear itself, it's the fear of fear. And when you dissolve that and find that state of dissolution, I think it's a very, very powerful thing for anyone. So thank you for all of your knowledge this evening. I do have a closing that I would like to do, and then obviously we'll wrap up for this evening. Folks out there watching, make sure you click the like, share, follow, and subscribe buttons. Get this episode out there. If you have any questions on a tantric practice and you are serious about this, Baba Yogi Kalinath Aghori can point you in the right direction of how to get that practice started. Please follow him. He has wonderful content, wonderful videos. As you heard tonight, a plethora of knowledge that you can tap into, and he's happy to give it and help in any way that he can. So as we bring tonight's conversations to a close, I want to thank Baba Yogi Kalinath Aghori for sharing his wisdom and presence with us. His words remind us that the Nath Aghor and Kaola Tantric traditions are not simply about ritual or philosophy, but about direct experience, about walking in the fire of transformation, guided by the fierce love of Kali Ma, the Divine Mother. We've heard tonight how the womb of the goddess is not only the source of creation, but also the crucible of destruction and rebirth, teaching us to let go of fear, to face death, and to discover the freedom that lies beyond illusion. For those listening, may you carry forward the insight that was shared here this evening, not as mere ideas, but as the sparks to ignite your own journey, whatever form that may take. Because in the end, the path of Tantra and Aghor is not about escape from the world, but about seeing the sacred in everything, even in what society tells us to reject or fear. I want to thank you, Baba Yogi Kalinath Aghori, obviously, for being with us this evening. And to our audience, stay open, stay questioning, and remember that even in the darkest place, the Mother's light is present. Thank you so much again, brother. And we'll catch you next time on Knights of the Nephilim.
Jai Ma. Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.